Hi, everyone. My name is Avramovic, and I am a sales operations analyst at a company called Javari. So we are a technology company that focuses on emergency response, communication, and so on. So we work with everyone from the federal government to state and local governments, corporations, cruise lines, airlines, and everything like that. So my role within the company is I am the main CRM administrator. And I kind of wear different hats throughout the week. My background is when I finished my first graduate degree, I transitioned over to a sales position, working for another SaaS company. Within that role, I had experience a little bit with Salesforce, which is one of the CRM tools, and I really liked it. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I decided to transition from a sales role to a more analytical-based role, and that's actually when I enrolled in a Master's of Business Analytics at Quinnipiac University. I'm still enrolled, so I'm still kind of working through the program. And that program kind of covers everything from data mining, data management, data warehousing, and things like that. And then in December of last year, I transitioned over to Javari as one of their sales operations analysts. So as I mentioned before, my primary role is a CRM administrator. I do some financial reporting, which is slowly starting to increase as my time here kind of approaches that 1 year mark. I also do reporting on marketing activities, sales activities. I am the main administrator for our CRM instance, as well as our quoting system. So everything that when it comes to pricing of our products, when it comes to making the user experience for sales reps a little bit easier, I handle that, as well as general CRM automation and things to just make the user experience pretty smooth. And then I also work with the broader marketing department on our customer satisfaction survey and analysis, and that information gets presented up all the way to the board. So I my work kind of dips into various different buckets, but I'm really happy with it. And one of the bigger projects that I've taken on so far since March of this year is helping current clients transition over from a license and on-premise model to a subscription SaaS model. So that's been definitely a challenge and pushed me a little bit outside of my comfort zone. But it's been a really rewarding experience so far. And yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up for the most part. I'm originally from Sarajevo, and I moved to the States when I was 9 years old, almost 10. So I've been here for quite a bit.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. So analyst is very common job. Like you see ads all the time everywhere, and you seem like a really good person maybe to explain, since the purpose of these talks is to give insight into various career paths and hopefully help the youth make informed decision. So what would you say in general an analyst job entails?
It really can be a lot. So one thing that I always thought of was it's a lot of work in Excel. It's a lot of work with working in spreadsheets, figuring out dollar values or crunching numbers and things like that. My experience with it is it can really be anything that you make it. So one thing that I found very helpful, and this is a little bit when I was attending school, there was often this push for don't Google things, you have to learn them on their own. in my position, and I think in my experience speaking with other analysts, Googling is very encouraged. So one thing that I've done that really helped was just looking at some of the online resources that are just available to everyone. There are existing certifications for different kinds of systems. So if that's a database administrator, if there is a Salesforce administrator or anything like that, but just going through some of that free online coursework for whatever you want to focus on is really, really helpful. And then something from like a professional development perspective has been having something like an online portfolio. That's something that I did that really is helpful to point to. And this can just be, you're looking at dummy data and dummy statistics, but then playing around with it and creating analysis that way. I feel like that kind of stuff really sets individuals apart, just because they're putting in that extra effort. There's a ton of other resources. I know I've followed a couple of like YouTube series on creating an online portfolio, what all of that entails, and just kind of use that as a guiding principle. And then once you start the work, you'll start to ask different questions and ask of, what would happen if I looked at it from this lens, and you can actually apply that within the portfolio and then draw conclusions. So I think that's something that is really, really helpful, especially for individuals that are wanting to get into this field. But overall, analyst and like business analyst, it's a very broad topic, but that's kind of how I've approached it so far.
Oh, that was wonderful advice. Yes, definitely Googling. Yes, that is actually learning.
Yeah.
I really don't understand why would anybody say don't Google it. How you're going to learn, and you're learning when you're Googling. Online portfolio, that's excellent advice. You made good point. Dummy data, often people say, well, I just cannot share my project. I cannot make it public. But then, yeah, you put that extra effort and you show your expertise with dummy data. And I want to ask you about Excel. So Excel, even little kids use Excel for simple things, but still, I'm not in financial world, but I heard even like the most amazing companies, they still use Excel. Learning Excel is definitely worthwhile time.
100%. And I think I've actually read somewhere, I don't know the source, so don't quote me 100%, but I've read somewhere that no matter what system, people can create, they're always going to go back to Excel for some of the more intricate things. So one of the things that I've done in the past maybe 6 months is creating different dashboards for different individuals. So when they log into our CRM system, they're going to be presented with certain information. And I'm currently working on a project where someone that has access to that dashboard is requesting that I recreate something, but in Excel, just because it's clear to see. Like he can check the math, he can double check the math, he can double check that I'm looking at the right things. And even though it's nice to have everything automated, I definitely think that getting used to those functions and getting used to everything Excel can do is really powerful. So I fully endorse it. There was definitely a period of time where I hated it and I kind of needed to just spend time with it. And yeah, I think it kind of goes along with in the what I said previously about the portfolio. There is, and just to add on to that, there is a couple of websites out there that provide you dummy data that you can work with. So one thing that I saw was pharmaceutical sales in Belgrade from 2000 to 2005. And then I can go in there and I can track what percentage of sales came on a Sunday versus what percentage of sales came on a Wednesday, and then factor in time as well. And then the conclusion that you obviously draw is that most people pick up their medicine on their way to work on a Thursday. So it's being able to take a couple of 100 or 1,000 rows of data in Excel and kind of narrow it down to come to a conclusion. And for me personally, the reason that I still really like doing what I do is the problem solving aspect. I think being able to ask the question and then figure out the answer. Most of the time it's in Excel, and then learn how to present that information either upwards or to another department within an organization is extremely powerful.
You mentioned software as a service. Is there anything you can share? How would one approach that? Because I know lots of young people, they build project on site.
I think the number one thing is like building that relationship. That's primary. So previously in the sales position that I worked at, we were working with graduate programs. So we were essentially selling graduate degrees as I worked for a company that provided that graduate degree through their technology. So I worked with professionals who were looking at master's and doctorate degrees in certain programs, and building that relationship and building that rapport with that individual is probably going to be the best bet. And then after that, it's just really listening to what they're looking for and what they need, and then trying to figure out how that service that you're providing, how that fits within what they're needing. I think, and I honestly think that being genuine is definitely a strength. And yeah, I would say those two: building the relationships and approaching it from a genuine mindset is really, really helpful. I actually work with, there's a sales rep that I interact with at my current company, and the way that she defines it is very great. She basically says that she is there to help this organization and their mission, and try to add to that as much as possible through the services that we provide. So I would say that those kind of three things are what I would keep in mind.
So you studied global affairs. Can you tell us about that program? Is that mostly political science?
Yeah. So I first started out in my undergraduate career kind of wanting to go into international politics. I really was interested in doing a lot with the former Yugoslav region in terms of international politics. I think there was definitely a point where, to be 100% candid and honest, I kind of got worn out with everything that was happening. And I think that's what caused me to make the transition. One thing about the Global Affairs program and then the Conflict Resolution program is it really did set me up to have some of the soft skills within my current industry. So something that I often run into when I'm speaking with other analysts or kind of going down a random rabbit hole on a Salesforce forum for a problem that I'm trying to solve, is that, while there are brilliant minds out there, sometimes they're lacking some of those soft skills. And I really felt like going into this business analytics program with the background of the Global Affairs and Conflict Analysis Resolution program, that kind of was a nice combination to pair those soft skills with more the analytical and data-driven skills that I work with on a day-to-day basis now. But it's mostly, to answer the original question, the Global Affairs program is, it looks at more than just kind of traditional political science. It also goes a lot into economics, specifically economics of developing countries. It goes into the specific conflict resolution field, but also touches some of those traditional political science ideas.
So conflict analysis and resolution, you did that as well. Was that more on bigger scale in context of global affairs, or? Yeah.
So the topic is really what you want to make it. So my lens was looking at it from a larger worldview, and specifically the role that conflict resolution plays in typically like post-war environments. But I definitely had classmates that were using kind of conflict resolution principles and things like human resources. And they're able to work at a larger corporation and work in a human resources role, which is really helpful. But I also had, classmates that were interested more in court mediation. So a lot of them work for lawyers' offices and mediators for a court and things like that. So it is very broad. It's not a cohort-based graduate degree, so I wasn't really going through the program with the same set of students. So my class sizes were anywhere from 5 to about 25. Where you can really pick and choose what you wanted to focus on during your 2 years there.
I think what you said, soft skills, that's really golden. Data analysis, business analysis, it's both art and science, really. And you get technical part, but whenever you work with people, you need soft skills, and you work with people. so yeah, I'm especially interested in your expertise in conflict analysis resolution in professional setting. Mm-hmm. So let's first talk about functional conflict. When team members have different views how problems should be solved, how do you approach these situations? Problem is we all have pride, insecurity, and ambition.
I also think that it's sometimes tough for individuals to admit that they're wrong. And I think just recognizing that is really powerful. Something that I've learned about within my current role is that some of the higher level executives have what they call a README. So essentially it's presented to somebody when they're first onboarding, and their supervisor is able to write this README out that indicates kind of all of those quirks that they might have and how they deal with conflict and things like that. I find that extremely powerful. I haven't been in an organization that does that previously. So being really open and honest about it and knowing when to admit that you might be in the wrong, but at the same time knowing that it's like a safe environment for you to say, I'm going to take a step back because of X, Y, and Z, and being able to communicate that, I feel like it's extremely powerful. And yeah, I would definitely say that kind of that transparency is definitely going to be at the top of the list for that.
Right. So any tips, how can we build emotional intelligence to take on constructive feedback? How can we...
That's a heavy question. I would definitely say that if you can, or if it's within kind of your bandwidth, putting yourself in kind of uncomfortable situations is definitely beneficial. And hearing some of that negative feedback, especially from individuals that are that have the best intention to help you improve, and sitting through that and learning from some of those mistakes is extremely important. The feedback that I've recently gotten is that sometimes when things were to go wrong, I tend to I used to take them personally. And I've had to learn to just accept the fact that, hey, I made a mistake. Now I know what not to do next time. But that definitely takes time and definitely takes patience. I think my age group and something that I've kind of seen is that with kind of the millennial generation is that we sometimes take work a little too seriously, answering emails and always being online, especially if you're working from home like I am, where you're always kind of close to your computer and you can always answer that email. And it definitely takes time to let things go and to be okay with that. I also 100% endorse people going on vacations for a week. It's completely fine. Like, that email is still going to be there when you come back. So I definitely think that it takes time and patience, and like getting to that balance. I know I mentioned time and patience, but it also takes work, and knowing when to take a step back, knowing when to step away a little bit is really helpful in those cases too.
Right. I think it's great you mentioned not taking things personally.
Yeah.
It takes work, you're right. Like it takes patience and time, but actually conscious effort to separate your idea how to solve problem
Yeah.
from your entire personality. Right.
Yeah, that's true.
So, okay, so how can we deliver feedback in the best possible way? I think what you mentioned, read me file, and really knowing people
Mhm.
it helps us communicate in the best possible way. But some general tips maybe that you learned in school or through your experience.
Yeah, I think that knowing how to give, like knowing to find the good feedback is very helpful. Obviously, we all want to receive that good feedback, and we all want to be told that we're doing a good job. But learning how to, instead of just saying you're wrong, I would approach it as more of like kind of a teaching moment and kind of a offer up that assistance that, especially if you are the subject matter expert in whatever you're doing, and somebody that you're working with does it incorrectly, knowing when to sit that down and instead of, there's a couple of options that you can take. One of them being, I'm just going to do everything, and I know I'm going to do it because I'm doing it, and I know my way is the right way, and we're just going to do it this way. But I guess another approach is offering up assistance, offering up help, and using it as much of a coaching moment as you can. Sometimes that's really tough, especially if there's like an age difference. That's something that I've really had to struggle with, where individuals that are within this kind of the same level as I am are older. So learning how to navigate that can be very tricky at times. But just really staying patient, and what's really helpful and what's really beneficial is explaining the why to individuals. And what I mean by that is, why are we looking at this the way that we want to look at it? And why are we making the decision to solve this problem? I think something that my current supervisor, who I consider a mentor, sometimes when I come up with crazy ideas of everything that we can do with the information we have, he kind of steps back and says, okay, like I understand the excitement, I understand the enthusiasm, but what business problem are we trying to have or trying to solve? And what are you trying to solve with this idea? And that kind of feedback is very helpful in learning how to communicate why we want to do something, and then kind of taking that with the feedback of, okay, well, let's look at it from a different lens, and kind of having those coaching moments, I feel like is extremely powerful. I think it goes back to what I previously said about being genuine. If I recognize that somebody is genuinely trying to get me to develop, I'm going to sit through those sometimes uncomfortable conversations where I'm going to be told that what I did was wrong. But I know that their intent is to have me improve and to have me develop, because, if they see something in me, or it's not always, we just have to get this done, so like, let's just do it. Recognizing those individuals being genuine and wanting to help is really great too.
Explaining your reasoning rather than, I think it's a great idea, or I say so, which is
Yeah.
the worst one.
Yeah.
But yeah, why? The business case behind it. So this functional conflict is part of life, and it will happen sooner or later. What are your go-to strategies to deal with conflict when it arises?
My initial step is to step away most of the time. I consider it a true blessing being able to work from home. I think it's a really great perk. If that's going outside on a walk, or if that is leaving my leaving my phone, leaving all kind of communication devices here, that's fine. And then coming back to it. Since kind of since the start of the pandemic, I forget the year, 2020, something that's been really helpful for me is I go on runs every morning, and that's when I kind of, it's my time where ideas start to flow, which is really great. But it's also a time for me to decompress from something that might have happened yesterday. So even if I get frustrated on a Tuesday, by the time that Wednesday morning rolls around and I'm running, I'm already thinking about like, okay, maybe I was silly to be frustrated. Most of the times they're very, very silly things that I get frustrated about. But recognizing that and learning how to step away is really great. I think previously when I've tried to just push through it, I've seen my productivity and the quality of work that I'm putting out not be as what I expect of myself. So knowing when to step away, or something that if somebody's listening that is kind of going into the corporate world, and like there's going to be other individuals that are going through the same challenges. They just might not know. So developing kind of those relationships where you can talk about nothing for 15 to 20 minutes, I definitely think is helpful. And I think it's a great way to kind of decompress. And another kind of lesson is the problem that you're having. What's like really great is that there's probably someone out there that's going through something similar. And I think finding those communities is really helpful, where you can kind of work through different problems, even if it's, especially if it's something professional or kind of specifically to a task oriented. But yeah, it's taken a really long time, but being able to step away is definitely my go-to.
So how to best deal with difficult personalities? Like, they are out there.
Yeah. I think there is going to be times where you kind of have to offer that feedback. And I think it's extremely important to have those difficult conversations with that individual sometimes. And as always, you want to approach it from, I'm trying to offer this feedback to you so it can help both of us, and not just getting things off my chest, and not just, you're terrible, this is why. I think it's extremely helpful to come into that space from a very genuine point of view, and understand that you're there to help, if it's your team, if it's your relationship with a supervisor, if it's something like that. I definitely think that most often they will appreciate that feedback. And they'll appreciate being told that, something that they've said, something that they've done, kind of caused some kind of reaction. At least in my kind of time as a young professional, that's something that I've experienced. And I don't know if that's just luck by who I've been supervised by, but that's definitely a trend that I've seen, that individuals are very open to that difficult conversation. And 95% of the time they also want to improve. But sometimes they won't know that there is an issue unless somebody tells them. So being proactive and stepping up and kind of being comfortable with those uncomfortable situations is really beneficial, both on a personal and a professional level.
So how about this situation? If you need a team member to do something which they don't want to do?
I think there definitely has to be some level of accountability. So if that is between two individuals that are within the same kind of at the same level, then there needs to be some kind of accountability for who's responsible for what. If there is a clear, I don't want to do this from another person, I think it's very beneficial to, sit down and speak with them and to kind of walk through it. You never know like what somebody might be going through, number one, but number two, at least in my experience, you never know what somebody's comfort level is with the system or something along those lines. So sitting down and putting in that additional time and effort with them to assist, to kind of walk through it, offer a helping hand, I would say is definitely key. But also if you need to bring in like a supervisor to be there to kind of work through some of those dynamics, I would definitely say that's justified as well.
And how about when an issue is about knowledge gap, that somebody is supposed to know something for position they're in, but they don't, and you don't want to be tattletale and tell their manager?
Yeah, I actually I have been through this in the last 10 months, or actually 11 months, a couple of times. I honestly, the way that I've dealt with it is I've brought it up to my supervisor, and kind of try to see if there are any expectations that are already in place. But at the same time, like, offer some, especially if you're the individual that's experiencing this with somebody else and you know what to do and they don't, doing things like, hey, I want to work on this, but do you want to shadow me or something, and kind of approaching it from a more casual perspective, so that way, if it comes time again to do something similar, you can say, oh, hey, it's just what we did on video a couple of weeks ago. I know you can do it. Sometimes the extra words of encouragement are beneficial to some, not all individuals like that. But that's definitely something that I would recommend. I mean, I would say that if there's any kind of assistance that I can provide besides this 35-minute chat, feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn, or I believe that my email's with you. I'm more open than anything to kind of help in any way that I can, even if it's not specific analyst advice, or if it's broader career advice, or choosing a graduate school or something like that. I'm more than open to kind of assist with that in any way that I can. And I definitely think if you're thinking about going down this career path, I definitely recommend it. I think it has some great perks, and I think it definitely is. It's always going to be around, which is pretty fantastic.